This episode of the Turf District podcast is brought to you by the Well Endowed Podcast by the Edmonton Community Foundation. Hosted by Andrew Paul and Elizabeth Bonkirk, the podcast explores the impact of passionate people who are working to make Edmonton a strong, vibrant city to live in. The Edmonton Community Foundation helps create endowment funds, and the podcast tells the stories of how the funds intersect with the community. A recent episode talks about the Rusin Family Hospice Centre, Edmonton's first freestanding residential hospice run by Pilgrim's Hospice Society. Subscribe to hear more at thewellendowedpodcast.com. We had a bit of audio issues with the show this week, so you may find a little bit of clicking and things with the mics. Sorry about that. We'll try and clean it up for next week. I still hope that you enjoy the show. It's time to huddle up. It's the Turf District Podcast. To the Turf District, where we huddle up to talk all things Edmonton Elks and the CFL. And we are a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, locally grown, community supported. We're also part of the Canadian Football Podcast Network. I'm Andrew, and welcome back to the show. I'm excited to have a very, very fun show tonight because we have an amazing guest for you. But first and foremost, let's talk about a few fun things with the one and only Superfan Mike. There he is. Oh, there they are. Took a second there for the Jantlers took a moment. That's fine. It happens.
Well, you know, gotta leave them with a little anticipation, right?
Yeah, well done. I like that. That was very, very good. How are you, Superfan?
I'm doing good. It was a fun weekend. Had some football. I mean, it was inferior football, but it was football nonetheless. And so that was kind of nice. You know, the half show was good. So.
Yeah, the halftime show was great, and according to Kayla, and I need to read this specifically so that I get this correct. Her review of the halftime show was legit magical dopeness. Which
outstanding.
Seems about right. Yeah, exactly.
Which is, if you had a fourth child, that would have been their name. So that's good.
I'm going to throw that by Nicole. That's good. Yeah, see how that works.
Hoskins.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. It has been a busy week. I started a new Lego set. We watched that football game. There was some free agency too. I don't know if you heard about that.
I didn't. What's free agency?
It's weird because if I wrote the show, last week, I would have had to update it every 5 minutes. But I waited until this week, and I only had to update it every 2 hours. So that was great.
Very smart.
But we have lots to talk about. But of course, up front, we are joined this week by one of those free agents that is returning back, making his way back to Edmonton. Was formerly a Golden Bear, is now home. Offensive lineman Mark Korte. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is amazing, and we're so happy to have you here, and happy to have you home. That must feel pretty amazing that you're coming back to play on the team that you grew up watching.
Yeah, it's a little surreal at times to think about over the last week. That things actually did come together. Certainly loved going to games growing up and cheering on the team and following the players and whatnot, and then to have to kind of come onto the other side of that and be one of those players has been somewhat of a dream come true from childhood to now. And so it's been, I'm really excited to be back and to get into Commonwealth Stadium today and meet some people, made it all start to feel real a little bit. So it's really exciting for me and for my family to be coming into this, and sort of joining into, this great tradition that is, football in Edmonton and, continuing to be a part of that.
That's
awesome.
That's amazing. Hey, Mike, before you ask your question, we should ask Mark, what did you think of the halftime show?
I thought it was great. I had a fun time with it. It took me back to a little bit of, I had a phase, sort of towards the end of high school and the beginning part of university. I had a rap phase that I went through, suburban Albertan as I may be.
Yeah.
So it took me back a few years for sure.
Oh, that's That's so awesome. Okay, Superfan, sorry, I hijacked you there. You go ahead.
That's all good. Of course, you talked about family, and family is often how we sort of get attached to the game. But in your case, who introduced you to football, and when did you start playing?
Yeah, for sure. I started at a young age, sort of through both my brother and my dad. So, my dad played through university and actually got drafted by Edmonton way back in the day. Didn't end up playing professionally, but played all the way through and was certainly a big football guy. So then, there's some pictures on the wall around the house. And so that led my brother, who's 2 years older than me, to start playing. And then as soon as he started, then like a lot of younger brothers, I was around the field and I wanted to be involved. So I started up, I think I was 6 or 7. I was the youngest kid on the team. And really I was just sort of on the field. I wasn't really doing anything. I was 7 years old. I'd just kind of go out there and kind of follow the people around, and but had a blast with it from the start. And so I guess I was definitely older brother and dad sort of started that journey so long ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your dad was drafted in 89, I think. So back in the day when Leroy Blue was joining the team as a defensive end, the Canadian defensive end. So would have been a great time for sure. So you talked about being a Golden Bear. Tell us about the experience you had with the U of A and with, of course, head coach Chris Morris.
Yeah, it was excellent from start to finish. Came in out of high school, and it was really in a bit of a pretty tumultuous spot in the history with the Golden Bears. So, I came in and I was, and I had been a good high school player, but I was a guy that probably needed some time to grow physically. I came in and I was playing offensive line at about 240, 250 pounds, and but we weren't the best team. So, and we didn't have a ton of depth. So off I went to play against a bunch of guys who would be in the CFL the next year. First game being against a pretty stacked up University of Calgary team, and kind of got thrown to the wolves a little bit and kind of grew over those 4 years, partially because of being thrown in there. And I think it was a good experience for me. In those 4 years grew so much as a player, but also from a personal level throughout that program, both from, some veteran players, some good alumni that were involved, and Chris Morris does a really good job as well of not only developing players, but of developing, young men as well to, just sort of come in as boys out of high school and leave as men as they graduate university with a high-end degree from the U of A and, having played some high-end football in university. So definitely, all 4 years there were first class and loved it all. And, I miss it sometimes, but, certainly happy with where it's placed me so far.
Yeah, I bet. And we're happy now where you're placed. That's the more important thing. How did free agency day kind of open up for you? Or I mean, did you always kind of expect that you would come back here, or was that something else that kind of caught you and drew you back to the Elks?
Yeah, it was an interesting process with free agency because it's, you sort of when it begins at the start, it's okay. Where am I interested? Am I interested in leaving my current team at all? And I said, okay, well, it would be nice to be maybe closer to home, and to explore somewhere that could be a bit of a new beginning for me. So then looking into it, and then you've also got to find out, okay, who's looking to bring in a Canadian offensive lineman, and that sort of Edmonton seemed very interested right off the start. And so that obviously checked a lot of boxes for me, especially when you look at a new president coming in, new GM, new coach, new coaching staff, really a clean slate of people for me to work with and people that have had success in the past, really from the top down. They've won Grey Cups, they've won games all over the place. So being able to come into that and join a veteran group of offensive linemen was something that really drew me in right away. And once the interest was there on both sides, I think we were both pretty eager to get something done and to work something out. And thankfully we did. I think both sides of this are really excited to get a contract done. And, personally, I just am excited to get to training camp and start to gel with a new group of guys and learn what they're all about and how our group of offensive linemen is going to function. because it's different every year. And so it's a really exciting experience for me. I think it'll be a great move for me, both on and off the field, and, just excited to get to it.
Be nice to have your family able to see you playing all the time too, I'm sure.
Yeah, and that's, it's certainly a piece of it, and I, as much as I value that, I wouldn't have done it if the football piece wasn't there as
Sure.
well. And so it was so great that it worked out from both a personal standpoint and from a football standpoint. Everything really just came together for it, which is excellent. It was fantastic. I really couldn't have asked for more. And it's rare as well, because it's something that if you're gonna do it, maybe if you don't do it this year, it might not come open again. It might not come open again next year. You never know who's gonna come into a role and hang on to it for a long time. So when the opportunity to play for a team that you really want to play for comes up, and all the circumstances are right with it, it's something to pounce on for sure, and glad we did.
That's awesome. So you already know the storied history of the team. What do you see happening here with the recent additions and changes? Sort of a lot of excitement building, I can see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of excitement and a lot of reason for optimism. Of course, we mentioned, I got to meet the new president today. He's excellent, high energy guy, really excited to get things going in Edmonton. So he'll be great, on down. Chris Jones gives a lot of reason for excitement. McAdoo and all the coaches on the offensive side and the defensive side as well, reason for excitement. And then into players, you look at, we've got a really veteran group of offensive linemen. We've got some guys that have been, in the CFL for a long time, that have won multiple Grey Cups. We've got a really good running back. We signed the best receiver in the league, arguably. We've got talent all over the roster. We've got a great organization. I think there's a lot of room for optimism here. And hopefully, over the next little while, we can hopefully build on that great legacy that's been laid down here over, past few decades here in Edmonton.
Yeah, well, and also joining you back up with your buddy David Beard. Yeah,
he's going to be excellent to work with. We got to spend a year together in university, and then I got to watch him move on and start his career here in Edmonton. Started off with a bang, won a Grey Cup in year one, which is what we all hope for. Must be nice, I'm really excited to work with Dave. He's obviously been a very good offensive lineman in this league for a long time, and so I'm excited to be reuniting with a fellow Golden Bear.
Oh, I'm excited to see that too. Now, how many 65 jerseys has your family already bought?
Oh my! I think there's a good crowd. I think we're gonna have to find some sort of bulk deal or something on the numbers. We're gonna have to figure something out because, thankfully there's some good family support. Really excited to share that with them for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. Let's do a couple of rapid fire questions and get to know a little bit more about you. So, we'll start with, what shows are you streaming these days? What are you into?
Oh my. Okay. Just finished up. I can't bring myself to watch the last episode of The Sopranos right now. I've been sitting on one episode left for about 2 weeks now because I just don't want it to end.
I'm on the second last one myself.
Okay. Oh well, there we go. We'll have a watch party or something.
Yeah. Exactly.
So just finishing up that one. Curb Your Enthusiasm is another great one. I'm a huge Seinfeld fan, so Curb Your Enthusiasm, kind of goes with that with Larry David. So those are kind of my two. I always like to have, 1 hour long sort of, show going and one sort of sitcom length show going. So right now it's a couple HBO classics.
Oh, those are all good ones. What's on your playlist? What's on your iTunes playlist these days, or Spotify, or I don't know. Everyone's got a different one. So yeah.
Yeah, honestly, this is a bit of maybe a bit of a vibe killer. I don't really listen to a lot of music. A lot of podcasts. So a lot of Turf District podcasts going.
Ooh,
nice.
That's usually what's on in the car. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, a lot of podcasts. The one I really like, another sports talk show. Pardon the interruption. Yeah, that's my one. I'll listen to every episode of that one for sure.
What's do you have any pregame rituals?
You know, I used to have a few in university. I had some goofy ones, and then we had a few, like, we got stuck in traffic on the way to a game one time or something like that, and I didn't get to do it, and I was all thrown off, and so I just swore off all pregame rituals because I thought if I ever get stuck in a situation where I can't have them, I'm going to be devastated. So I stay away as best I can.
That's fair. That's fair. What's your favorite meal?
Butter chicken with rice for sure. Nice. Either that or a nice good Italian deli sub. One of those two. I'll take either any day.
All right. I'll join you for the second one. Mike will join you for the first one. That's how that works. Which player did you look up to when you were growing up?
Ooh, good question.
Other than your dad, of course. I know that's part of it, but that goes without saying.
Get a pass on that one. You know what? I grew up in that Ricky Ray, Jason Moss era. I always knew I was never going to be a quarterback, but those two were always fun to watch. Patrick Kabongo is an Edmonton player that I think is every young kid stuck out in his head. This just massive guy. He always kind of stuck out to me as I was like, oh yeah, Patrick Kabongo. Anytime I'd go to a little event and meet him, it was always so fun. He's just such a big, happy guy.
A guy who's never met a buffet that he didn't appreciate. That's right. Yeah, he's a good dude. Great dude. All right, this is one we ask all the players we have on. You have a chance to talk to anyone, alive or dead, for 30 minutes. Who is it and why?
Oh my God, this is not suited for rapid fire because I need a lot of thought on this. 30 minutes, dead or alive, anybody. It's got to be somebody with like a really good answer to a question. Like some burning question you might have. So, geez, now you're really putting me on the spot here. You know what? Like, put me in like a golf lesson with maybe like Tiger Woods or Jack Nicklaus.
There we go.
It'll just like, it's probably not the best answer. I could probably like get some answers about life in general, but you just save me so much stress if you could give me a golf lesson for a little while. And iron out a shot, iron out the driver for half an hour. You'd make me happy. Maybe I could talk to someone else who would help me make the world happy, but at least I'll be happy and good enough then.
That works. Absolutely. And then last one, what does being an Elk mean to you?
Oh, another one we could go on about. I think it's, what I've been able to learn here early on is that there's a real legacy of success here in Edmonton, and that's something that's to be upheld and continued. So as much as there's a whole host of good things that the team brings to the city, success is among the highest of those things, and winning games is what people are after here in Edmonton. And that's been something that has, been clear, even playing against Edmonton, is that, these guys want to win and these guys' fans want them to win and they expect success. So that's something that has been early on here of listen, here in Edmonton, we win games and, come and be a part of that. So excited to be joining into that.
That is an excellent answer, and very happy for all of us to hear, because that's what we like, is winning games. We're really, we're not too picky, but that is one thing that we're excited about. Before we get into talking about Elks free agency, I want to talk to you a bit about the announcement today with they're doing doubleheader of the Golden Bears game followed by the Elks game on October the 15th. I think that is amazing and a start of really good things to come for things this season. But how does that make you feel, being that you played in both spots?
I think it's excellent. I think the partnership between U of A, between Bears football and the pro team has been something that's been unique to Edmonton I don't think any other CFL team has quite as close of a relationship with the university team like we see here. And, having it in such a public and out there way, like we're going to do with this doubleheader, I think is incredible. I think it's going to be excellent for both the professional and the university teams, and for the players involved especially. It's going to be, sort of one of those landmark events in not only their football career, but also in that university experience that they'll look back on. When I was between 18 and 24, what are the moments I remember, and this is going to be one of them for them. So I think it's going to be great for everybody involved. We're gonna do a good thing here, and I think we talked about it a little bit today in the press conference. Hopefully, things go well with it, and we're able to grow it, and it becomes something that is a year-over-year thing. Is certainly what I would love to see with it.
Yes,
that this is something we do is every fall. We have this doubleheader, and hopefully it works out that way.
Oh man,
that'd be great.
Yeah, that'd be amazing. And Mike, I saw your tweet. I guess that means a double tailgate, right?
It's got to. I'm pretty sure. So the question is, do we just do two of the same thing, or do we have two different options?
Yeah, I guess once we get closer,
we got time.
We'll surprise people. It'll be fun. Yeah, I can't wait. Extra tailgate is always a good thing. Yep. All right, let's talk about the Elks in free agency, because there's lots to talk about there. It was a very busy day. Of course, the first announcement being yourself, Mark, which we were all very excited about, but it was followed by a few other announcements. I don't know if you knew that, Mike. Let me just run through this list quickly. Defensive back Ed Gainey signing on for 1 year. The return of Konar the Barbarian. Linebacker Toby Antigua in for 1 year. Wide receiver Kenny Lawler, as we talked about the last time, joining the club on a 1 year deal. Defensive line, McKenna Henry, Canadian defensive line, I should say there. Wide receiver and kick returner Jalen Marshall joining the team. Linebacker Dion Lacey returns to the green gold. Linebacker Nakis Onyeka comes across from Toronto to play in the better city. That's going to get me in trouble. Linebacker, and probably Mike's favorite name from now on, Korte Sapp.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought. Defensive lineman Stefan Charles returns to the Elks after being a draft pick in 2015. Is that what it was, Mike? 16?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay, good. I'm glad that we've fact-checked me on that.
No, it's 2013. 2013.
Was it 13? Wow, I didn't think it was that far back. Okay.
It's Ed Hervey's first year.
Ah, yes. Okay. My personal favorite joining the team, defensive back Trey Hoskins, who I hope he makes the team just so that I can have a jersey with my own name on it. That'd be amazing. Defensive back, Deron Carter, which that one was just announced yesterday, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a moment. Fullback, Ante Milanovic-Litre, and today, defensive lineman Jordan Reeves. So the Elks very busy in free agency. Mike, give me your first impression on what you thought of this whole thing.
Yeah, I thought there's some interesting choices. We've got quite a few Canadians on the defensive line, which I think is great. I love seeing more Canadians getting roles on the defensive side, especially in roles that aren't necessarily going to Canadians. We saw it before where we had defensive ends that were Canadian. Now we're getting more of the defensive tackles, which I really like to see. But yeah, Korte Sapp, I mean, how can you go wrong with that name? That's made for football.
That is a football name. That is very true. Yeah. Give me your impression, Mark. All these new guys joining the team. What was your first impression with that?
Yeah, looks like a team that's serious about winning. I mean, going out, and it was obviously pretty public, the money they spent on a guy like Kenny Lawler, to bring in an elite receiver. That's excellent to see. You see the pattern of some guys that Chris Jones has worked with in the past. Like Toby Antigua has been, a big piece of his defenses over the years. Kind of a guy that can kind of play all over the field. Henry at D-tackle is a guy that's been in that system before, and I can tell you from personal experience, a very hard guy to play against. Dion Lacey's a really strong linebacker. I think on either side of the ball, there's a lot of talent there, and some guys that are going to perform at a high level.
So we were talking about the free agents. Mark, you were saying that, lots of guys that look like they want to win. I agree. There's maybe a couple of surprises on there for me. One was the return of Konar the Barbarian. I'm happy to see him back, but that one I was a little surprised. I thought that he'd be staying out on the West Coast. But very happy with the return of Dion Lacey because he was awesome to watch before, and I'm excited to have him back here. So it's going to be an interesting few months as they prep for how this how all of these guys come together and able to play together. So let's talk a little bit about, they did extend as well, linebacker Niles Morgan right through 2023. And how'd you feel about that, Superfan?
Well, I was a big fan of Niles Morgan in 2021. I thought he played great, especially as a rookie in that will position. He, I think, led the team in tackles. He seemed to be everywhere. Just had a nose for the ball, and with that kind of energy, I thought could be great to bring back to the team and see how he can progress to that next step.
Absolutely. I agree. And in the midst of that, then Keyshawn Bierria was released, unfortunately, as was Dakota Prukop, but he did find the Winnipeg Blue Bombers right away. And defensive back Darius Williams also being released from the team. So while I work on trying to make the sound better, Superfan, how about you do some Horde and Tell? How does that sound?
Sure, it sounds good.
All right, give me 2 seconds to let you set this up properly for you. There you are.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Outstanding. All right, so one thing I love, obviously, about the team is the history and learning about the team, things I didn't know before. And one great way of doing that is reading books that are CFL books about the team. People might be surprised to learn how many books on the CFL have been written. Probably, I think at last count, 150 to 175 books over the years written about the CFL. So I thought I'd pull out some of my books on the Edmonton Football Club over the years and kind of go through some of that. So the first book that came out, and this would have been in sort of 1980, I think. People may have seen this one. This is sort of everywhere. It's called The Decade of Excellence, and it was written about the team through the 1970s. And I believe you got this as a season ticket holder, or at least had the ability to purchase it as a season ticket holder. So it covers 1970 through 1979, and then in 1980 you were able to get this book. Absolutely fantastic. Tons of great photos throughout, plus a lot of history of the team throughout that decade. And anyone that is read about or remembers that decade knows just how good we were playing back then. From 1973 to 1979, we were in every Grey Cup except the one in 1976. So we did all right for ourselves.
That was pretty good.
Not bad. The next book that came out would have come out about 3 years later, and it was written by someone who is near and dear to all of our hearts, Mr. Danny Ray Kepley, and the book was called The Edmonton Eskimos Inside the Dynasty. So this would have been written right after the 5 in a row gang. There are a few pictures in here as well, but mostly it's just his stories. And if you've ever heard any of the players telling stories about their time playing with a team, they're always fantastic, and I'm sure there's a lot that was left out. But when you read this book, it's very, very 70s, early 80s. If you've seen North Dallas 40, the movie, and you sort of see just how wild and debaucherous it was, the book reads a lot like that. Phenomenal read. You can pick it up all over the place. Sometimes, if you're lucky, you can find it with the autograph still inside. This one was signed by Danny Ray, and then I was lucky enough to meet Jim Taylor, who was the co-writer, and he signed it for me years later in Victoria. And then at the end of the 80s was the 40th anniversary of the team, so they released the 40 Years of Excellence, which was sort of a history of the team up to that point. So again, tons of phenomenal color photos throughout, and lots of stories and history about the team, going back to the very first years of rejoining the league, when they started wearing green and gold jerseys. And someone asked today, why are they wearing green and gold jerseys? Why? It's because they got them from the U of A. So the U of A had folded their club after the 1948 season. Edmonton had started a professional club, and so the jerseys either were sold or donated by Maury Van Vliet to the new club. One thing you can't separate from the football in Edmonton is the winning we've had in the Grey Cup. And a writer out of who's currently in Medicine Hat, writing for the Medicine Hat News, wrote a great book called Grey Cup Glory, and that's about the 2003 team. Ricky Ray on the cover there. Again, some great photos in here as well. Lots of phenomenal stories about the 2003 season and the Grey Cup we'd won, which was the first one in 10 years at that point. For those out there...
Always going to win more of those. I'm okay with that.
Exactly. Anyone out there that maybe has got a little inner kid inside, like we all do, a great book. There's a little kid's book here called The Edmonton Eskimos. There was a full series, and they actually had them on all the teams. I don't know if you can sort of see all the teams there on the back. So all the teams got one. Unfortunately, this is during that era when there was no team in Ottawa. So sadly, there is no Ottawa one, but maybe they'll write one now. It's very short. It's just mostly pictures and little factoids about the team. And again, that came out, about 8-9 years ago, so that's sort of that just before we had the Mike Riley era.
I believe you got me one of those. I have one of those in my
I think
room.
I did, yes.
Yes.
A nice light reading book. Would be the Terry Jones at the Legacy book. You can find this sometimes for half price or even less, about 40% of what it originally was selling for. This book is absolutely massive, weighs about 10 pounds, so it makes a great coffee table, if not a coffee table book. Again, Terry Jones had written this, and is about the history of the team and everything going on in the team from the very beginning. Tons of phenomenal photos, and because it's such a big book, it's great to see these massive photos. There's a lot of great inserts in there as well, like they have reproductions of tickets or programs, photographs of the at the time, I think it was 11 Grey Cup rings, because they didn't have rings in the 50s team. So a really cool pickup if you can find it. And lastly, the reason I wanted to sort of all do this today is because the book that's probably hardest to find, I've been looking for 17 years for a copy of this book since the day it came out. For some reason, the author decided he didn't want me to have a copy, but I found someone else selling it, and that is a book on the 1954 Edmonton Eskimos. This is a sort of like in a program format, full of phenomenal facts about the 54 season and, of course, the very first Grey Cup that the team had. I love the cover. Absolutely phenomenal pictures of things from that era. Mark McCarthy, the author, was the stepson of a guy named Frank Anderson, who was the defensive end and sometimes offensive guard for the team back in 1950s. I think he started in 50 and went to 57. Phenomenal read. I got this finally in the mail today, so I've been waiting a very, very long time to read that. So if you can ever find a copy, grab it, because you may never get another chance. So these are some of the books out there. Hopefully some people see some things they might be interested in. If anyone needs any help tracking some of these down, let me know. Other than that last book, I'm sure I can help you find some of it. And then let's read about the team and the history, and let's talk more about football.
Fantastic. That's awesome, Superfan. That is really, really good. Thank you for that. I love Horde and Tell. I guess my mic is still not cooperating. I'm not sure why that's being a bit of a difficulty this evening, but we've tried everything, so we'll just kind of power through. Let's talk about free agency in the CFL. Mark, you've been in the league now long enough, and you see all of these guys changing teams. How does that feel as a player when you see all these guys kind of flying all over the place and big names going everywhere?
Yeah, it's interesting every year to see who makes a move, and the interesting thing about it, and the thing that maybe the other side, I think some fans sometimes get a little frustrated with the short-term contracts of the CFL. But I think the flip side of that is it creates a beauty where you can turn teams around, essentially overnight in an off season. Whereas you look at other leagues, teams that are at the bottom take years, take decades to stockpile draft picks and get what they need to rebuild. Whereas in the CFL, you can, in Edmonton here, we won 3 games last year. We could win. You could win them all next year. You can rebuild the team so quickly and turn things around so fast. So it's exciting to see. The amount of movement and guys getting opportunities in new places, and always interesting to, as on a personal side, how quickly you get to know the entire league as you play with one guy and he goes to another team and then you go to another team. It becomes a pretty small world pretty quickly as a player.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I know. One of the tweets I saw this week was that Ottawa had the best expansion draft that wasn't an expansion draft. It's like they took somebody from everywhere. So that was that's pretty kind of funny. Was there any moves on the rest of free agency day that surprised you, Superfan?
I think more about some of the people we lost more than the people we gained. I was very surprised going back about getting Kenny Lawler. I didn't think that was really something that was possible. Honestly, I thought for sure he was going to stay in Winnipeg, and then having him come back was great. Ed Gainey is another one that I thought was probably going to happen, being with his relationship with Coach Jones. But and then same with Toby Antigua, same kind of thing, having played with him before. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the biggest surprise for me. And then on the outgoing side, I mean, how can you not say everything great about Sean White?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a tough one for sure.
I've been sort of working on something for a history segment on Sean White, outlining why he is the greatest kicker the team has ever seen. And whenever I say that, people say, well, what? How can you say that with Sean Fleming or Dave Cutler or whatever? And you look at the numbers, and Cutler, as great as he was, had a kicking percentage in the late 50s, 59%. Sean Fleming had it in the sort of 73. Sean White, in his time at Edmonton, was 92%. Unreal. For field goals, and that's of any range. His range outside of the 40s was better than Cutler inside the 40s.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I mean, this is just, and he is, I think, third best career kicking percentage for field goals. And that's in the CFL. Like, that's outstanding. So he will definitely be missed. And Winnipeg showed at the beginning of the season how much you need a kicker. So I guess we'll see.
We'll see how that pans out here. Yeah, absolutely. Let's go over just a quick thing. A couple things I want to say first. Canadian Football Countdown had an 8-hour show with different CFPN podcasters throughout, and it was a blast. And thank you to those guys for having us. That was a really good time. Some of the moves just around the league. BC was busy signing Purifoy, Delvin Breaux, Stove Richardson, Michael O'Connor. So they're going with a full Canadian quarterback flight, which is very interesting. I'm curious to see how that plays out. But today they're also, putting some history in place by, hiring the first female coach to help on the sidelines. I think that is amazing. So great for BC. I think they've made some really good moves. So I was really happy to see that. We talked about Ottawa already. Toronto, Andrew Harris goes to Toronto. Anybody surprised by that?
Yeah, actually. I thought they had a pretty good thing going on. So a bit surprising to see Harris going there, especially when he's a local boy who did pretty good for the team. I mean, he was most outstanding player of the Grey Cup just, a year and a half ago. But I guess it's a what have you done for me lately league for some of those skill positions.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, did that, like, as a player, you've obviously played against Andrew Harris. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I think, he was such a great person to watch. It was just such a great story to be, from Winnipeg, come up, be, for my money, like in 2019, he's the best player in the league. And to win a Grey Cup with your team and be the MVP of that Grey Cup and, make such a big impact. And unfortunately, things have to come to an end at some point. But I think, Toronto has kind of positioned themselves as a team that likes to bring in, splash guys like Andrew Harris and Brendan Banks, guys like that. And I think, it'll be a good fit for him. I have a good friend who's gone to Toronto as an offensive lineman. He's sure excited to have Andrew Harris playing behind him. So I think it'll be a good fit. It certainly is unfortunate to see things end sometimes, but that's the nature of the business. And you know what, I think Winnipeg's going to be just fine. I think Andrew Harris is going to be just fine. And Toronto will be very happy to have him.
Yeah, I think the most shocking thing for me with this was that Andrew Harris never played in Calgary, so why is he playing in Toronto? Like, that's not how it works, right? Like, I think Toronto signed Quick Six for a little bit, as I recall,
They did.
on free agency day. At least that was
brilliant.
That was, you know, the Argos social media team, man. Like, thumbs up. They're doing a great job. And although I will say, in the last week or so, we're seeing a little more from the Elks that's making me laugh, and I'm enjoying that very much. Yeah, especially Victor's tweet with his mean tweets with his mom. That was unreal.
That was phenomenal.
Yeah, love it.
We need more mom.
That's what I said. More mom. She's awesome. And then he told me to stop hitting on his mom. And then he said afterwards, "Oh, it's okay. My dad said, go ahead." Like, he's like, Victor's awesome. Come on. How do you not like this guy? It's so fun. The Stamps only lose players. They don't bring anybody in. So they're all about finding that new guy, I guess. Hamilton brings in Micah Johnson to make that defensive line a little scarier, which is something to talk about, I guess, later in the season. Riders making a splash in the defensive linebacker spot between Moncrief and Sankey going there. Not a lot of O-line help there yet, though. So I was happy that we had some balance with some great O-line guys. Right, Mark? And some defensive balance. That was very good. Bombers lose a fair amount, which happens when you're the Grey Cup champion. And Montreal, they did sign Hergy Mayala, but they re-signed Trevor Harris, which to give some support there to Vernon Adams. So lots of big moves around the league. I think that I don't know. Lots of people want to say, well, is there a winner in free agency? And Mark, how do you feel about that when they talk about, is there a winner is a team in free agency?
Yeah, I think there's certainly, you know, that's the beauty of there being so much being available in free agency is you can do so much. You know, on the organization side, you can turn things over and really, you know, position yourself to compete next year. And you see some teams take different approaches. You know, you see, you know, Edmonton was a team that went out and got a bunch of guys. You know, you see Calgary being a team that likes to sort of, you know, they kind of say, listen, maybe we're not going to spend as much in free agency. We'd rather, you know, bring our own guys in and develop them. And recently they've had success with that. And either way can work. There's sort of, you know, different approaches to cook the meal. And so I think there's some really good moves that have been made by teams around the league. You know, some guys that will make a difference. You know, you mentioned the Trevor Harris one. I had a chance to play with Trevor in Ottawa. I think he'll be fantastic. Frankly, I think Montreal got a bit of a steal bringing in a veteran quarterback like that. I think he'll be a good fit there. So I think there's lots of it gives every fan base you know, room for optimism coming out of free agency for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you have you had a chance to talk to your quarterbacks yet? I didn't even ask you that.
Yeah, you know what? I haven't been able to get acquainted yet, but you know, actually, there's been a few. You know, I never actually did get a chance to meet Nick Arbuckle because he had briefly crossed through Ottawa through 2020. We never actually did cross paths, but you know, on paper, there's a history there, and but you know, heard great things of you know, his former teammates that you know, stand-up guy and just the guy you want to be around. I actually. You know, JT Barrett's a guy that was recently signed. I actually played against him in the Shrine game back in 2018. He was on the East team, and so, you know, all the players sort of interacted that game, and so can't say I know him closely, but you know, we got to shake hands, sort of thing, and seems like a great guy, and I think all those quarterbacks. The nice thing that I found about quarterbacks in my time playing football is they're all that guy in high school that can do everything. You know, every quarterback you meet, they're not only are they a good quarterback, but like they're the best golfer in the locker room. They can play the guitar, they can play the piano. You know, they seem to have the whole picture figured out. So never really met one I didn't get along with, thankfully.
Oh, linemen are like, you know what I'm really good at? that eating all that stuff on that table. That's what I'm good at. And bench pressing a lot. Unless, you're going up against Ed Elnicki, supposedly. He likes to think he out pressed you at that or something. But I think we'll have to have the two of you on to discuss that more.
Yeah, maybe we can fight it out between the two of us now.
You tell him, yeah, right. We'll have a wing eating contest and see how you do in that, buddy. That's right.
Yeah, and Ed can pay. And loser pays. Yeah.
Perfect. Oh my. Well, before we end the show, this episode is also brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network, bringing you a curated roster of Alberta-made podcasts. This week's shout out goes to Loyal Company of the River Valley, a podcast all about FC Edmonton. Their latest episode was out last week, talking about the change to being a league-owned club. But there's a few rumors running around that there might be some joint ownership with the Elks at some point, so they might be talking about that on their next show. So find them and many other great pods at Alberta Podcast Network.com. Which I'm sure sounded really great with the garbly mic. But anyway, whatever. just to make it more fun. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And tell everybody, where can they find you now that you're actually on Twitter? And where can they kind of interact with you as we kind of go forward towards the season?
Yeah, for sure. My Twitter account is fledgling. I've had it for a few years, but I just started tweeting last week, so I'm Mark D. Korte, just the letter D in between my first and last name. That's my Twitter that's getting off the ground, and if you want pictures of my fiance and my dog, you can find me on Instagram at Jurassic_Mark_. When I was in high school, a friend convinced me to make a play on Jurassic Park. Nice. And now it's stuck. I won't change it now. So that's where you can find me. It's a good one for sure.
Well, I want to ask you what the D stands for, but all I wanted to be is it's like for Mark Damn Korte. Like that might, so is that what it is? Or I don't know, but it would be amazing. Like, but I'll let you.
Oh my God.
Keep that to yourself.
No, my Dwayne Johnson is my uncle and godfather. So not the Dwayne Johnson, but a Dwayne Johnson is my uncle and godfather. So he's my middle name. So yeah, that's Mark Dwayne.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, well, I'll just see you out on the field there. Can you smell what Mark is cooking? That'd be amazing. We can get you doing the announcing the players before the game. It'll be awesome. It'll be great. I think you should all take turns. That'll be great. Yeah.
I love it. We'll give Chris Sheets a run for his money.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it's time to shake it up a little. It's all right. We love Chris, but we can shake it up. Superfan, where does everybody find you?
They can find me at 56 Parkies, and then anything about the Horde and the history, they can find me at the Edmonton Football History Twitter account, which is at EDMHISTOREE.
Wonderful. You can find me at Free Policious, of course, because that has now relaunched. Find the commissioner at Duchess Lombardi. Make sure you are following Pay It Forward with Football as they get ready to ramp up for their season as well, because they do so many great things and they're good friends of ours. Join in the huddle with us at the Turf District. That's on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, pretty much anywhere you want to just do chatting. You can find us there. And of course, you can stick around with us. We will try to do overtime and talk a little bit more with the fans. I know the mic is bad, and I'm sorry. I'm really trying to get it fixed at the same time, but what are we going to do?
Not that bad.
Enough that we can chat about it. So thanks so much for joining us, Mark. I really appreciate it. We'll get you out of here so that you can go probably have another snack and get a chance to have a little bit of sleep this evening. But we look forward to interacting with you more throughout the season, and of course all the best for the season as you get to it.
Awesome. Sounds good, guys. Thank you so much for having me on. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And so for Mark, Commissioner K, and Superfan Mike, I'm Andrew. Remember, you can't catch footballs with your face, and we will absolutely talk to you in 2 weeks.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.